All right, welcome and hello. This is my Boulder 70.3 race report. This is for the year 2024, but information could probably be also helpful for other years as well. If you were an athlete on the race course with me 2 days ago, it was a pleasure sharing the course with you and swim, bike, and run together. It was a great race for me, I thought. If you were an athlete, fan, spectator, staff, or volunteer, thank you for your support. Thank you for your cheers, and also for those of you working the aid station on the run course. Big thanks to you folks. Help me get through the race. See, I'm making this video for me and for you guys, and just gonna be talking like a normal video. Nothing really fancy. I will put up some of my numbers and then some of my photos, but nothing really too much going on there. I just traveled solo. I made it a 2 day, 1 night trip, so it was a quick turnaround from me from California. So I didn't have anyone taking photos of me, but I did buy the finisher pics, so I got that to share. And also, if you're in the race, you obviously received your race bib and a few other goodies. When you checked in, you got a race shirt, boom. And then when you finish, you get a finisher hat and your finisher medal right here. So good stuff. Good stuff. I'm gonna put that over there. Okay, so let's get started. First, the swim. The water temperature was measured 67.8 on race morning, and for me, that's I could go with the long sleeve wetsuit or long or a short sleeve wetsuit at that temperature. And I went with the long sleeve wetsuit. No problem there. I felt comfortable the whole race regarding temperature. The altitude was a little bit noticeable. Always swim at sea level, so I felt a slight shortness of breath, but it wasn't overwhelming. Let's see what else. I wore my tinted goggles. That was fine, but I think non-tinted goggles would have been fine as well, especially during the swim earlier in the morning. There was cloud cover. It was like a partially cloudy sky, and that all ended during the bike and definitely during the run. There was just no shade at all, but we'll get to that later. Oh, I expected to be 35 minutes, and I ended up swimming a 37:50, which was a little disappointing. I actually swam a 36:48 3 years ago at this race, and I'm definitely a stronger swimmer than I was 3 years ago. So I'm not sure what happened there. I think I drank a little bit too much water just before the swim, and I felt like I had to burp for the first like third of the swim, and I finally got that burp out of me at the first buoy. So I felt better after that. Plus, between the swim start and that first buoy, things were kind of crowded. And I don't know if it was always that way or because I'm swimming with the 35-minute people instead of the 40-minute people, but uh, got a little knocked around, had my goggles knocked once, and I was able to readjust and carry on from there. But yeah, after the first turn buoy, the swim went a little bit better for me. Okay, so T1 is right by the swim exit. It's literally like 30 seconds of jogging, maybe a minute of jogging tops. And so I made it to T1 pretty quick. And in the T1, I heard some people talking about how their swim was slow or slower than they expected. And I was like, yeah, me too. I didn't say anything, but yeah, if you're in that camp, then you're not alone. With the bike course was great for me. I rode a PR split. It was 2:29:23, just under 2:30. So that was great. I was actually looking at my watch with a few miles to go, and I'm thinking, I'm doing some mental math, right? I'm like, okay, so we got 3 miles left, and I'm, you know, 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes left before 2:30, which would be like 2:21:30. So anyway, long story short, I got under 2:30. That was awesome. Probably the one of the highlights of my day, of my race, was that. I am on Sacramento Triathlon Club, and I was wearing the shirt on Friday. And there was only, I think, two other people from my team at this race. There's actually a few other races closer to Sacramento that was more popular for our team. But on race day, I wore my Zoot kit, which is a bike bottom and bike top, just so I don't look the same in all my race photos. And it's a pretty sweet kit too. All right, so the bike course itself was just as I described in the video, except that Hygiene Road is paved. So I mentioned that it was looking kind of sketchy and not great in that video, but it was paved. I mean, there was no bad part of the bike course. Every part was really good. The uphill was not even didn't even feel like an uphill. It was maybe 2 or 3% uphill. And we even had a little bit of a wind to our back because it was blowing in from the northeast. So heading like west on J Road, it felt flat to me. I was probably averaging 20 miles an hour, and that was the quote uphill segment. Now the rollers going north along Route 36, that was a little bit slower, like the uphill segments of the rollers, but there was plenty of shoulder width and travel lane to negotiate passing. That was never a problem. I would say the first maybe 10 miles of the bike course had a little bit more traffic just because there was more riders that hadn't quite spaced out like is the case at the end of the bike course. But after like mile 10 or 15, I could ride just face down for 5 seconds at a time, peak up another 5 seconds, um, because it was safe enough to do that. So I like that, and I think that helps with aerodynamics a little bit. Towards the end of my first loop, I saw the two top male pros pass me. So the the pros go first, and they finished their second loop on the bike just as I was about to finish my first loop on the bike, if that makes sense. So I never saw the third place male on the bike, but because I continued and started my second loop. But that was cool to see Trevor, and I'm not sure who that was behind him, but that was neat. I mean, those guys were moving. They probably passed me at a 10-mile-per-hour difference. And the only problem with the bike course, at least for my race, was I didn't drink enough. So on my bike, I had a front fountain that's probably 24 ounces, and that was water. And then in my bike frame, I had two 32-ounce water bottles, which are pretty good size. And I sort of expected to drink all of it. And that was filled with Gatorade. And I only drank one. So I'm like, I didn't want to force myself to drink, but it was a little concerning that I wasn't drinking enough. But I just kind of went with it. I just kind of, whatever. That ended up catching up with me a little bit in T2. So and on the run. So I got off the bike and T2 went fine. I pissed yellow. I knew that I was dehydrated and I knew the run was going to be a struggle. I knew it was going to be hot. And this is sort of why I should have been drinking more. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to finish this race, I better drink at every aid station and put water on my head and ice in my hands and do everything I can to stay cool. Now, objectively, the temperature was only like 75 degrees, which you might be thinking like that's perfect conditions. But for some reason, I just felt like it was hotter than that, and I felt overheated. And I don't run very fast in the heat. Running is my strength, but the problem with me and a lot of the triathlons I do is I push too hard on the swim and I push too hard on the bike, especially this bike because I wanted the PR. And then my run ends up being like my worst split. So my time was just under 2 hours for the half marathon. It kind of pains me to say that because I know I can do better. And yeah, I drank at every aid station. I kept cool. I walked every water station, and I walked even between a few water stations as well. But I was going to finish, and I saw one of my teammates. He saw me actually. Just before the finish line. So that was a kind of a nice little power boost at the end to see a familiar face there. But altogether, I crossed the finish line. I got my hat, my medal, and I'm a finisher, and I will be back. Absolutely. I don't know if I'm going to be back next year or not, but I love this course. I would say 4.5 out of stars out of 5. It's not like the perfect course for me, but it's near perfect. So I really like it. And if you follow my channel or keep up with me on Strava or know me personally, you'll hear about my race plans for this race in the future. But I definitely recommend this race. Great support, great logistics, except for the parking. Uh, since I mentioned, I should probably say that they had us park a few miles away at this large parking lot and bus in, and I didn't have a problem with getting there and getting bussed into the transition before the race, but after the race, um, the line was too long to get. I just rode my bike back to my car, and it was like 5 or 6 miles. But the logistics for getting back to the parking lot after the race could be worked on. Okay, my final time was 5:15:10. I was 32nd out of 144th in my age group, so I think that's about 75th percentile, which is typical for me for a 70.3. I will link my Strava links down in the description. So You can read my full race report. It's actually in the run activity is where I just described everything I did now, plus my stressful Friday. So for me, this is a 2-day trip. I flew in. I took the first flight from Sacramento to Denver, rented a car, drove to Boulder, checked in, built my bike, and then I realized I had a lot of bike problems. First the chain, then the Di2. Long story short, I didn't get my bike into transition until about 5 hours after opening my bike box and starting to build it. So that was a headache and a hassle. And I'm not going to talk about that anymore on this video, but read the race report, the run activity. Have a good laugh at what happened to me there. But anyway, next race for me is I'm signed up for Santa Cruz 70.3. That's in September. That's the only race I'm signed up for at this moment, but I may jump in to a few other local races. I live in Northern California, so I don't know if I'm going to do any other out of state races this year, but I may jump into Donner Lake Triathlon. That's in July, and or the Lake Tahoe Triathlon. That's in August. And there's still a chance I'll do a race after Santa Cruz or a full Ironman. I'm not signed up for anything else. I haven't completely written it off. All right, well, hey, that's it for me in this race recap of the Boulder 70.3 triathlon. I hope you enjoyed watching. Hey, have a great day, and if you're a triathlete, just get out there and keep crushing it.